back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go with them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, gonna go over a story titled, My Stay-at-Home Wife, a 40-year-old female, has been treating our son poorly and favoring our daughter ever since I complimented his cooking. How should I handle this? Now, this story, guys, is about a husband and father who reluctantly at first is hilariously kicking his wife out and ending it with her after she went mental after their son cooked dinner. God forbid. Cook dinner, and all of a sudden he's the big villain here. You'll see that the wife is a stay-at-home wife, and her big thing is cooking, fair enough, but how this whole thing unravels here. And let me tell you, this guy didn't want to go down this route at first, but she forced him. And I've been going to go over here, guys, to show you how you can be in a relationship for a long time. Your gal seems normal, and then just one day, something that seems like no big deal just triggers something. And then the dragon comes out. Then the claws come out, and you realize what you're dealing with here. So it's always important early on to really, you spend years getting to know her and pay attention for these things. But this is one of these stories that's like, you got to be kidding me. And in the end, ultimately, this guy certainly makes the right decision here and handles it the way as a boss because, well, the craziness only expands as the story progresses. It says, my wife has always been the one to cook around the house. As an Italian, it's one of the reasons I fell for her so hard. I'm sure there's other reasons you fell for her too. I've offered to help out in the kitchen or even cook for her sometimes, but she's always firmly, yet politely, told me no, and I can't really blame her because I did not get either of my parents' good cooking genes. Because of this, I've always been sure to thank her for every meal, and I've taught my children to do the same. Well, that's great she wants to cook and everything, and hey, I'm not going to fight someone that wants to cook for me can do it well, but if I want to cook something, damn it, I'm going to cook something. And, frankly, she can teach this guy some things. For the past year or so, my son has been watching a ton of cooking videos on YouTube and TikTok and has really been wanting to try his hand at cooking. Cool. My wife was happy to teach him, and at least twice a week, the two of them would go out to the store, buy ingredients for a meal that he found on TikTok, and come home and make it. Holy crap, somebody's actually making good, positive use of TikTok. Imagine that. Cooking, not the other stupid crap that goes on there. It's been awesome seeing them bonding more, and since they haven't really had much overlap in their interests before this. About a month ago, after dinner, my son asked his mom if he could try making us all a meal on his own. I said it sounded like a great idea, and she hemmed and hawed for a little while before agreeing. Hemmed and hawed? I'm sure he's probably just boiling up some spaghetti and maybe making some homemade sauce or grandma's secret recipe and baking some garlic bread in the oven. I'm sure it's not going to be that complex. Relax, sweetheart. Sounds like his wife's a bit of a control freak. So that Saturday, she took him to the store to get his ingredients, and then he got to work. She supervised here and there, but he insisted that she didn't need to. So eventually, she came into the living room and sat with my daughter, and I looked a little bit dejected. So I reassured her that I was sure he's going to cook. He'll still want to cook with her. He just wanted to try it out on his own. That seemed to help out a little bit, but she still seemed a little off. For goodness sake. Now, okay, fine, cooking's her thing, it's her role and all that. I'm assuming she has a job here. Oh, no, she doesn't have a job. My bad, because this is a stay-at-home wife, so she doesn't have a job. This is her role. Ooh, he's coming on her territory here. When he finished the meal and we sat down to eat, I was honestly surprised at just how good he managed to do on his own. Well, he had a good teacher. You know, that's complimentary to her. I feel bad saying it, but even after a year or so cooking with his mother, I expected him to mess it up more than he did. I wanted to encourage this interest of how so sure to let him know while I was eating how good he did, and gently bring up a few mistakes that he had made. I did it a little more than I usually would with my wife's cooking, and in hindsight, I can see that's what started all of this. His sister, being his little sister, was not supportive as I was, and quite rudely insulting his cooking. For God's sakes, he's a kid. He's trying here. You know, yes, you learn by making mistakes and everything, but there's a way of kind, constructive criticism and then being a little a-hole. I was going to tell her to mind her manners and be thankful that he cooked for all of us when my wife made a sound and pushed her plate away, before agreeing and saying that it was too salty and overcooked. She pushed it away. Bitch, you can eat the fucking food. Really? I mean, this kid has been like her little apprentice. This is how she, Because constructive criticisms than this. This took me aback, and I could tell my son took it hard too, as his mood visibly dropped. I didn't say anything at the time, since my wife and I never argued in front of the kids, and I just kept up the praise of my son's cooking as his mother picked up the plate for a little while longer before she took it over our daughter's place to the kitchen. Yeah, you know what she did? She probably took the plates and opened up the freaking trash can and dumped it in. This sounds like any of you guys ever worked in restaurants and deal with any chefs? Not all, but many are freaking psycho. You've seen these shows. And sure, these guys get off on it, the power and yelling and carrying on like a bunch of jackasses. And the whole kitchen staff's like, yes, chef, yes, chef. Yeah, I've worked in restaurants and dealt with some of these jerk-offs. Yeah, they're fucking assholes. She sounds like one of them. This poor kid. He can become good without somebody shitting on him. But let's be honest here. She is mental, as we're going to find out. As well as obviously controlling. This caught me off guard since I didn't expect my wife to be jealous of her son, and I unfortunately let out an involuntary scoff at this. She blew up at me for laughing, and we ended up arguing for a while before eventually I managed to explain that I was complimenting him so much because I wanted to encourage him to keep cooking, and she even admitted that she shouldn't have been so harsh about it. You think? She said she would apologize to him, and I figured that everything was settled. No, everything is not settled, because that really showed a character flaw in her, big time. Like you couldn't see this before here. That Monday, when I was driving my son to school, I noticed he wasn't acting normal. And looking out the window, trying to hide his face from me. I asked him what was wrong, and he told me he was fine. But I could tell he was fighting back tears, so I asked him again, and he broke and told me that after I left to get the car started, she told him, obviously his mother, that she was going to be cooking alone again from now on. I was furious about this, but kept my cool and told him I would talk to her about it. Bought him a snack from the store before dropping him off at school. Freaking psycho. I left work early so I could get home before the kids would talk to my wife. I'll admit I didn't handle it well, as I could have, and we ended up in a shouting match before I was calling her childish for being so vindictive towards her son because she was upset with me, and she called him a baby and said he shouldn't be so sad about not being allowed to cook. What a bitch. Yeah, here's the thing, guys. You always, as best possible, want to be the calm one, the cool one, when she's flying off the handle, because it's only going to escalate. They want the drama. They want the yelling and screaming. But let's be honest here. When somebody's yelling at you and freaking out, it takes every fiber of your being and self-control not to do the same thing. And I've had some Italian girlfriends, and they can get me fiery. I'm well aware of this. And your blood is just boiling. This fucking spaghetti sauce is going to come out of you. You got to try to be calm. But she is just mental. This is her. She should be so proud for the mother-son bonding time that she can teach him. You know, if he learns and does a good job, which he will in time, you learn by making mistakes. It reflects on her. She was bitching about him and said since it wasn't a man's job to do so anyway, about him cooking. Hello, how many male chefs are out there? We ended up leaving each other alone to cool down, and when our kids got home, my wife took our daughter out and came back later with a load of toys and clothes for her. Now she's favoring the daughter. Nothing for the boy. I knew immediately what she was trying to do, and that night I told her that I would not let her use the money I made for our family to punish my son. She didn't take this very well. We ended up arguing again. I slept in the guest room. Smack! No, take her little Italian behind out the door, and she can sleep in the guest room. And had been up to this point. For this past month, my wife had been keeping up this vindictive showering of her daughter with attention and gifts while almost entirely ignoring my son. She's psycho. I have a hard time believing there wasn't signs of this before. Really. Time to talk to a lawyer. I know everybody's like, here we go again, SSM saying to get a divorce. Does this seem like a healthy situation to you? These stories I cover, guys, guess what? They're all effed up, and it warrants a trip to the attorney to find out your options. I've been talking to my parents and brother about this, and while they agree she's wrong, they also don't see as big of a problem, and they think it will sort itself out. Well, smack to the family. Are you fucking kidding me? The way she behaved, the way she's treating the son, and treating the daughter here like she's a little princess, and treating the son like garbage. I think they just don't want them to break up. That's what I think's going on. They don't want to have anything change what they're used to. At this point with her, she's been treating At this point, with how she's been treating our son, I'm starting to fall in love with her, but I also don't want to just jump to divorce if there's something that I can do to fix this whole situation. You can't fix crazy. You can't fix assholes. That's just how they are wired. I can honestly say that we never had a fight like this big before. You've been married to an Italian chick this long and you haven't had a fight this big? I mean, not over this subject, but over other things. Sure, we bicker every now and then, but she's never taken that out on our son in the past. I feel responsible and guilty about what happened. Smack! Don't feel guilty, sir. She's the a-hole here. And I've been trying to do nice things for my son when I can, but I also don't want to mirror my wife's behavior, so I've been taking my daughter with us about half the time we go places. But whenever we do, she's been very rude and always talks about all the stuff that her mother does for her lately because she knows it bothers her brother. So the little sister's a little a-hole too. Look at her role model here. You saw how the sister behaved at the dinner table, and the sister's probably come back with her clothes and her toys and like, nah. I don't know how old the kids are, but seeing the way my wife has been treating our son made me second guess our marriage. But I don't want to jump straight to a divorce either. Any advice on what I should do or how best to bring up the topic or therapy would be appreciated. Well, sir, I do agree you need to take a very long, hard look at your life and your marriage to this wacko here. I think she's been spending too much time in the hot kitchen, in my opinion, and frankly needs to get laid. I would be talking to a lawyer, finding out all your options, good, bad, or ugly, and it's time to lay down the law with your wife. You don't have to do it in front of the kids, the laying down the law, although it probably wouldn't hurt at this point, and see where things go. But given how she's behaving, given how obviously she's mental, probably going to go very well. Now let's see. Update. It says, obligatory but genuine. Thank you for your support, even the comments that got a bit nasty. This is Reddit. There's always going to be nasty comments. That kind of pushback helped me to see things were a lot worse than I realized. Some of you could do with being a bit nicer, but the advice is appreciated all the same. As a short recap, I don't need to read this shit. We all know what happened here. The first thing I did after making my previous post was to take my son to my parents' home to tell them what was happening from his mouth. I figured they may be more receptive seeing the pain their grandson was going through and not just write off like they did it with me. They end up understanding and supportive of my next move, which is kicking my wife out until she worked out through whatever problem she was going through. Nice job, dude. You've redeemed yourself for sleeping in the guest room. That's right. Kick her out. She's an a-hole. Show her you mean business. I think this is certainly warranted. Until you get an attitude adjustment, honey, you're out of here. Next, I went to the lawyer and consulted him. Very good. See what being putting his story on Reddit did here? He told me it would be the best to have the papers ready to go, even if I wasn't sure I wanted a divorce yet, because it's better to get it done as quick as possible if I decide to go through it, because in Canada, you have to either have to separate for a year or prove abuse or adultery. Well, I think I can see some abuse in this situation. So I took the kids to my folks' house the next Saturday and came back with my mother. I let her talk to my wife first, and then when we were done, I told her I needed her to leave the house until she sorted out whatever was causing her to act this way to our son. That's great and all, but you're not going to fix crazy. You're not going to fix a-hole here. She surprisingly agreed to this. I'm guessing hearing things from my mother knocked some sense into her, as they were always quite close. I told her my parents were willing to let her stay there during that time because her parents lived too far away, or I could put her up in a nearby motel. I would also pay for her to see a therapist every week, which I told her was mandatory for fixing things. You see what happens when a guy starts laying down the law? When a guy stops putting up with bullshit, right? This is, it's a darn good thing he put the thing on Reddit. He got some perspective. Some people may have been harsh on here, but knocked some sense into him. And I get, this is his family, this is his wife. She hasn't behaved like this before, and it's the kids, it's a mess. Yeah, it's crazy, but as things are and has been going, he can't let this shit go on any longer. Our kids spent the night with my parents, and we moved her out the next day. We both sat with the kids and told them what was happening. Our son understood, but our daughter didn't, and was quite upset. But eventually she calmed down, or we calmed her down. Things went well for the first month or so. She went to all of the weekly appointments, and I met her for dinner a few nights a week with the kids, and she seemed to be treating our son properly once again. I was really hopeful that she'd been making progress. But what do you think, guys? Is she making progress, or is this a bunch of BS to get herself back home, back in her kitchen? Then the Friday after her 5th therapy appointment, she sent me a wall of text messages about how I was an a-hole, and I was trying to steal her kids from her, and how I was probably effing someone else on the side. He's probably like, what the F are you talking about? Your behavior is what got you in this situation. But of course, he's the big villain here. She's probably been talking to some of her a-hole friends. I tried calling her to see what she was talking about, but I think she shut her phone off. I called my mother, and she told me that my wife had left the house earlier that day with all her stuff without saying anything to my mom. Guarantee she's talking to some of her harpy friends. I'm not 100% sure what happened next, as my wife has refused to tell me more details, and I can't get in contact with the friends she was with. The best I can piece together was that she had told her best friend about what's happening, and that friend started telling her about how I was just trying to kick her out and steal the kids. Why would this guy want to break up the family? Why would this guy want to steal the kids? But her friend, the wife's mental, let's be honest here. Off her meds or on too many meds, I don't know what's going on here. And the friend is just playing into it. But I'm willing to bet you this friend, who's just probably single, probably bitter because she doesn't have a family either, and happy to jump at the opportunity to break things up. She then moved in with her friend and went on a week-long bender of clubbing and drinking and drugs. What'd I tell you? By the way, she's 40 years old, and she's trying to behave like she's 22. And there's nothing more pathetic than seeing a middle-aged woman, or frankly a middle-aged man, end up behaving like they're a bunch of 20-somethings like they still have it. Come on here. But at least the guy in his 40s has a lot more going for him than a gal in her 40s. Come on, let's be honest here. When we were younger, we did our fair share of stupid crap together, so while this was surprising, it was mostly like her dumbass friends convincing her to relive the good old days. Well, something tells me there's going to be some cheating coming up soon. I hadn't heard anything for about a week, and then I got a text from her friend telling me that I was a loser, that my wife was too good for me, and she was effing a younger guy. Shocker. Oh, by the way, they're saying that her friend's saying this dude's a loser. A father who takes care of his kids. A father that's trying to work on things, pays the bills, and his wife is out there. She sabotaged the family. She's out clubbing and drinking and effing other dudes, and he's the loser. Oh, I forgot the drug part. Yeah, okay. I tried to demand she give my wife the phone so I could talk with her, but I never got a reply. I screenshot the text for evidence if I need it. Yes, take the evidence. I ended up getting a call from the hospital like 3 in the morning that Sunday. My wife had overdosed on something and was dropped off at the ER by someone who didn't stick around. Back to him being a loser here. Her friend dropped her off at the ER. Oh, there you go. Since I was her emergency contact, they reached out to me. I called my mom to watch the kids and head over there. They managed to get her stabilized and were treating her. Why? Seriously, after all how she's been treating him, after now she disappears for a week and drugs and alcohol, and she's at the ER for an overdose and effing some other guy. Well, that's what her friend said, but probably that's what she did. Why should he get up in the middle of the night and race over to the hospital? Now, okay, fine. I get it, because something ever happened to her, it'd break the kid's heart and everything. But frankly, I'd be like, okay, I'm going off to the hospital, but then I'd stop over at IHOP, a 24-hour IHOP and get some fucking pancakes at 3:30 in the morning. Screw her. But I'm a bastard, you all know that. Because their relationship is over. We know it. I stuck around for a few hours, and she was in and out of consciousness, and when she wasn't very talkative. And when she wasn't very talkative. Well, that's a first. When she properly woke up, she started apologizing for everything, and that's when I found out the few details I know about her friend and the bender. I asked her if she'd been effing someone else, like her friend said, and she didn't reply. Well, her silence said everything. Which was as much of an answer as I needed. She kept trying to apologize, and I just kept my cool and told her this was not the time or place for this. We ended up leaving the hospital about 8 o'clock that next day. I got her back to my parents' place, got her into bed, and just left. And just before I left, I put the papers on the table beside the bed and told her that I expected her to sign them within a week, and that I had proof she cheated on me during her bender. Well, you have proof that her friend said that. You don't have actual, proof, like pictures of her with some other dude or something like that. I'm sure that's helpful, but, I told my parents I was planning on doing this on the phone, so I wasn't just dumping this drama on them without warning. So she's going to wake up and find the divorce papers next to her bed at his parents' house. All of a sudden, you're going to hear like screaming, like in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when Cameron saw the mileage in the Ferrari. Y'all know what I'm talking about here. Ah! Do you see like parts of the city? That's going to be her screaming in his parents' house when she sees the divorce papers when she wakes up. Our kids are both doing fine. Well, I hope your daughter has had an attitude adjustment. But frankly, the daughter's just following the wife's bad behavior. They don't know anything of what happened with her mother or the divorce. All I know is that my wife is still moved out and she's busy getting better, so we're going to be seeing her as much. Not going to be seeing her as much. I'll probably tell them in a couple weeks whenever school lets out for the summer so it doesn't affect their learning. That's a good idea. Let them finish up their exams and all that, but again, I don't think the kids are that old. Over the next couple weeks, I've gotten countless calls from her ranging from begging for a second chance to screaming at me that she hated me and was going to make my life hell. That's what you've been doing. That's why we were divorcing, Sugar Muffin. Going back and forth every day. I've also been getting crazy texts from her family and friends calling me all sorts of names and threatening me if I didn't drop the divorce or I will regret it. Snapshot all that and give it to the lawyer. Now they're making threats at you. Remember that her friend was calling him a loser? All which I have screenshotted. My parents agree that divorce is the best, but they're still questioning my timing and wondering if I should have picked a better time to do this than when she was fresh out of the hospital. Smack to Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad, your advice has been dog shit. When I told you there was a problem before, you told me basically it wasn't that big a deal. You downplayed what I said until I brought our son over, your grandson, then you saw I was serious. No, Mom and Dad, I won't be taking any more unsolicited advice from you guys anymore. I'm 100% sure I want her out of my life, and I plan on going for full custody of my children, as I don't want them around my wife if this behavior is what she's willing to stoop to. Well, I hope that happens, but you just never know. And while I do want it done as soon as possible, I'm wondering if I should take back the papers and tell her to change my mind at least until she's a bit more stable. No, she's seen the papers. What's done is done. If you take them back now, it's going to make it worse. No. You need to end this. This is why I said earlier in the video, even though I'm always quick to jump down the divorce route, I know how these stories go and how bad it is. He also says, I saw a comment suggesting I take my kids to therapy to explain the situation to them. I have a session set up with a therapist in a week. Just want to wait a tiny bit longer for their school to be finished as possible. I forgot to include it when I first typed everything out. So there you go, guys. We may have some updates, we may not. But anyhow, she's mental. She's a wacko. You can't tolerate this crap, and good for him. I'm so glad that he finally booted her out. And look how she's acting like everything's okay, and the next thing you know, she gets with her friends, and she's... But let me start again. Something tells me that these friends of hers, who obviously are a bunch of low-lives and losers, you know, they've probably been jealous all along that she's no longer living the life like them. They're single and party and do drugs and all that. And by the way, why did this guy get involved with this girl? Well, he said that was the lifestyle they both did. So he was just as guilty into the party lifestyle. Yeah, we're all young once, guys. We all did we were 20s, bar hopping in clubs and stuff like that. It's another thing to involve drugs. So that's just fucking stupid. But anyhow, it's over. End of story, and good for him. So guys, it goes to show you, when it goes too far, you got to end it. End of story. And it's amazing how seemingly, it seems like from his description, that everything seemed pretty normal and okay, and up until the whole cooking fiasco, right? But I just have a hard time she didn't have other signs of her wacko ways prior to that. But sometimes people just eventually show who they are later in life. Who knows? So, but good for him, and I'm glad he's doing this because he's got to protect those kids from this nut job. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And, guys, you find a good story you want me to cover, email it to me, strongsuccessfulmail@gmail.com. Just give me some time to get to it, and I will. If it works for the channel. Sometimes some stories just simply don't work. And this goes for long stories here or short stories for the Clips channel. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.